Welcome back to another short from the Greeks Gridiron. I am Athan Hristodulu, and joining me alongside today, I have Eli Beberman, and we are discussing the New England Patriots draft grade. Welcome back to the show, Eli. How you doing?
Great to be back. I'm excited to talk about my hometown Patriots. A lot to talk about with this draft. I was very intrigued by pretty much all of their picks, so a lot to get into today.
Definitely. Really mixed reviews I feel like I've gotten from the Patriots fan base, just from what I've seen like online and things like that. Some people love it, some people are in between, and some people hate it. But for the most part, I think a really large majority of Patriots fans are pretty happy with everything that kind of transpired throughout the draft. Going into we'll leave that in there. That's fine. So the biggest thing I think that was like a question mark going into this draft was, would the Patriots make a move to get their quarterback of the future, or would they be able to stay put and actually get somebody? I think this was probably one of the most talked about storylines for New England going into the draft. And I mean, people had them trading up to number 4 with the Atlanta Falcons. And then some people were saying maybe as far back as like swapping into the 11th spot that the Bears got into to maybe try to pick up the 4th or 5th remaining quarterback, whoever that ended up being. And sure enough, they were able to sit tight in round 1 at pick number 15. They got Alabama quarterback Mac Jones. I think this is a great fit for New England. You know, most accurate QB under 10 yards and highest completion percentage in FBS history to go on top of that. The biggest knocks really just being that he played at Alabama under a fantastic system with tons of NFL caliber players. And yeah, everyone's seen the pictures at this point of him going around, of him with a very average looking body. So curious to see what you as a Patriots fan think about this, Eli.
Yeah, I like it. I think it's a really good fit for him. I like it a lot more knowing the fact that they did not have to trade up for him. If you have to give up, like we saw what Chicago had to give up to trade up to get Justin Fields, they had to give up 2 first-round picks and a couple high picks as well. So with all that Chicago had to give up, if New England had to give up that much to get Mac Jones, I would hate it a lot more. But the fact that they just sat there at 15, knowing that they had a very deep number of picks in the draft coming up later, that they could really focus on the rest of the team that needs depth, that needs an influx of young talent. I really like that they stayed at 15. Like you said, he's a very accurate passer, which definitely likes. I think it's going to be interesting to see how they utilize him. I think what's going to happen is they're going to build the system around Mac Jones, but Cam Newton is going to be the starter around at the beginning of the year. Honestly, given their skill sets, obviously they're 2 night and day different quarterbacks, but I think Cam Newton can succeed in that type of system for a short period of time. I don't know if he can do it for a full season. It's very similar. Both of them are going to be focused around the short passing concepts. Just instead of running back powers, you see a few more quarterback powers with Cam Newton. Obviously, Mac Jones is going to be running with the football much, but very similar from a blocking standpoint. It's a very similar blocking scheme they're going to run regardless. The receivers, Mac Jones obviously throws a better deep ball than Cam Newton. Newton, even from back in his college days, never really been known as an excellent deep ball thrower, but I think it's a great fit for them on paper. I'm excited to see how it works. McDaniels seems excited. This is probably the most excited I've seen McDaniels in quite some time. So
yeah, definitely.
I'm interested to see how it works.
Mm-hmm. I'm really excited to see it too. I think Mac Jones and the Patriots is kind of like a match made in quarterbacking heaven. Mac Jones wanted to go to New England, and I just feel like he fits the New England scheme that they've had there for the last 20 some odd years. I'm not going to compare him to Tom Brady, but he does have the similar type of style of play that you would look for at a quarterback that I think fits really well in New England, especially when you think of the type of weather they get there. You want an accurate, solid quarterback, not somebody who's inaccurate, can't play in the wind, things like that. I think that, with the accuracy that Mac Jones has, being in such a strong system and all the influx of talent New England has so far through this offseason, I think that he's going to be set up to be in a really good position down the road, whether he starts day 1 or if, Cam Newton takes the reins off of the get-go and then it ends up being like a passing of the torch type deal midway through the season or through the end of the season, who knows. Round number 2. Let's talk about this one because this is this has become a more interesting pick as time has gone on. Christian Barmore, the D tackle out of Alabama, they got at pick number 38. He was the consensus number 1 D tackle in the draft, and then ended up going day 2. And this was kind of a shock to a lot of people. And then it eventually turned out that there was big concerns on his drive to play and consistency of bringing 110% every single down, and coaches having a hard time even keeping him on just in the building and things like that as the season kind of went on. And A lot of questions seems to have come up about that. I feel like Nick Saban and Belichick have a really good relationship, and for Belichick to have traded up for a player, knowing that this is something that was kind of keeping other teams from picking him, I'm curious if that's like a thing with, the relationship he has with Nick Saban, if Saban told him something, or whatever it may be, where he's like, this is going to come out, but it's not maybe as serious as some people think. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, I think Belichick has a history with guys with some spotty efforts, some troubles in their past. Belichick has a long history of them, obviously, like names like Corey Dillon come to mind, who had a very sketchy past coming into New England and then helped them win a Super Bowl. And then you think of guys like a more recent example, you think of Trent Brown right now, who Trent Brown came in, people question his effort, question his commitment to football, played fantastic, left tackle on a Super Bowl team. Came back to New England, earned himself a ton of money playing in New England, but ended up coming back. Is probably going to slot in at the right tackle position this year. So he has a history with these type of players who are filled with talent, maybe have those questionable histories. So if anyone can get it out of him, I think Belichick's probably the best guy to do it. But watching Christian Barmore play, like, he has absolutely dominant qualities. Like this, if he hits, like, you got a top 10 type of player in the beginning of the second round, only for 2 4th-round picks that you really realistically didn't need anyways. He was probably going to, knowing Belichick, he would have traded out of either one or both of those, even if he kept him into the 4th round. So you really didn't give up anything to get him. So if he hits, you got a superstar, your nose tackle for the next 10 years. Belichick loves the front, especially on the defense. He likes to build from the inside out. So if he hits, it's going to be a pleasure to watch him in New England the next decade.
Definitely. And to your point, I mean, they traded up and they got rid of some capital, but they still wound up with 8 picks in the draft anyway. So, I mean, they gave up some, but they had so many picks that, it's not really a lost cause, and they probably would have traded out, like you said, anyways. Bill Belichick's known for trading back and back and back. And I remember leading up into the draft, people were like, imagine if Belichick just traded away their number 1 pick and they moved back towards the end of the first or into the second round. So, I mean, that would have been a very Bill Belichick-esque thing. If he didn't go for this and make this trade up, it probably would have been just a bunch of trade back picks anyways. So I'm going to let you take the lead on this next one here. Going through rounds 3 through 7, some of the names that they drafted here. Ronnie Perkins, the D-end out of Oklahoma, is somebody that kind of stands out a little bit to me. He had a really big, just 1 year, top of the line production. Before that, kind of just like an average player, but he was really great against the run and pass this past season. Another guy, Cameron Mcgrone, linebacker out of Michigan. He's more of a project type player, but there's a lot of interest there because he's super young. He's not even 21 years old yet, really athletic, kind of like a ball of clay for BB to move and just kind of, or mold into kind of what he likes to see. And then Trey Nixon, the wide receiver out of UCF, that guy that they picked up in the 7th round there. I'm curious to see what that's all about. Obviously, the wide receiver position's something of a mystery in New England. They brought in Nelson Aguilar and they also brought in Kendrick Bourne, but you don't really have nothing's really decided yet and set in stone for who's going to be starting and whatnot. So I'll let you go ahead and dive into detail on somebody that you really like from those 3 through 7 picks, or rounds 3 through 7.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can see there's a pattern with all these picks. None of them were really, besides Trey Nixon at receiver, none of them were really at positions that they need right away. These were all guys that they're brought in. A lot of them very experienced in college, multiple-year starters, playing all over their prospective sides of the ball. It's just to get that depth where they can learn from the guys who are starting, like bringing in a guy like Ronnie Perkins. Ronnie Perkins didn't expect to be available that late into the 3rd round. I was kind of shocked that he was still there. I thought he'd be an early 1st-round guy given his level of production. But Ronnie Perkins is a guy who you can sit behind all that depth they have with guys like Judon, Van Noy, Dietrich Wise, Chase Winovich, and the list goes on and on. They have a very deep defensive line and pass rushing combo. So Ronnie Perkins can sit for a year. He can learn behind all these guys, and then they can kind of unleash him as the season gets later in the year and into next year. But he's a high motor guy. Like you said, is very productive. Again, I like to call the Big 12 there kind of the Madden League. It's just you put up points, and if you don't put up points, you don't win games. So defense comes at a premium. So we don't see a lot of defensive players coming very highly rated out of that league. So it's going to be interesting to see how he adjusts. I don't think he's going to be ready day one, but he's a guy I could see down the road. In that same breath, a guy Joshua Bledsoe, I like him a lot. That's a typical Bill Belichick. Like if you were molding a Bill Belichick type of player, It would be Joshua Bledsoe out of Missouri, multiple year starter, played all over the defense. He lined up at safety, slot corner, outside corner, linebacker, and even defensive line. So he's played all over the defense. Has a lot of special teams experience too, which Belichick probably circled with 3 red circles around it. He loves that. So that's a guy with the depth they have at safety. They're not going to need him to play right away. But with guys like Devin McCourty getting older and Adrian Phillips on his last year of his 2-year deal, another older guy, having a guy like that really brings into your depth. And that's just a great guy to have on your team. And then Mcgrone, who's kind of the antithetical to what the Patriots have liked to do at linebacker in the Bill Belichick days. Mcgrone's more of a sideline-to-sideline kind of guy. He's all around the field, speedy. Normally you think of linebackers, you think of big, thick guys. Like you think of your Teddy Bruschi's, your Mike Vrabels.
Yeah, this was a super interesting pick to me when I was looking at it.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's Belichick recognizing that the NFL is kind of changing around him, that you really can't have the Jawan Bentleys and Dante Hightowers going forward because everything is just speed. So Mcgrone's coming off that ACL injury his last year of college. Probably would have gone a little bit higher if it weren't for that, but where they got him, they can basically redshirt him next year. They don't even need to play him a single snap, but learning behind guys like Bentley and Hightower, and Hightower's contract is up after this coming year. So that could be potentially some guy they could slide into to alleviate that loss of Hightower, who I'm going to go on a limb and say probably isn't going to be back after next year, but I liked Cameron Mcgrone. Another guy I want to talk about, Ramantray Stevenson. A lot of people were not thinking they'd come out with a running back. I knew right away as soon as this draft started, I knew that Belichick was coming out with a running back. So especially with Sony Michel declining his fifth or not picking up his fifth-year option, I knew they were going to need another back. This is the type of back that Belichick likes. He likes the big, thick backs. Like you saw how much he loved a guy like LeGarrette Blount. Won a Super Bowl with LeGarrette Blount in the backfield. So bringing another thick guy, and Ramondre Stevenson also has a lot of special teams experience. So it's another thing Bill Belichick likes to circle. And he has fantastic feet for a guy of his size. At about 5'11", 6 foot, around 230. He's a big, strong guy. Again, like you said, the weather in New England, you need that big, strong guy that you can carry the load.
You need the ground and pound guy, the one that can just put his head down and start running through defenses when it gets bad.
Yeah, exactly. And the last two guys, William Sherman, offensive lineman out of Colorado. Bill Belichick seems to have a thing for offensive linemen who are a little undersized for their position. Like he still has Isaiah Wynn at left tackle, not your prototypical left tackle. You think of like a big, long, lean guy. But Isaiah Wynn at left tackle, and then obviously Michael Onwenu, who people projected that he was a tackle. They were going to shift into guard, but played great at tackle last year for the Patriots. So William Sherman's another guy who fits that mold. Not quite as big as you'd like to see out of an offensive tackle, but really thick body prospect who's got some flexibility in him. You see he's got good bend when you watch him play. Sherman could be a guy they could move into guard, add more depth to that interior lineman with guys like Karras, Shaq Mason, and other guys like that.
The offensive line in New England's looking really good.
Yeah,
it's looking really good. I think
this is a top 5 unit. Maybe I don't know if this might be the best unit in the league. They're at least top 5. They can do everything: run block, pass block. This is a really scary team. In the trenches next year, they're looking dominant on both sides of the football. And you can really see that that's the way they built it with the draft from the inside out. So this is going to be a fun football team. No, they're definitely going to be more competitive than they were. We're not going to see games where, like, you see San Francisco just run them all over the field. Yeah. And then last pick for the Patriots, Trey Nixon, wide receiver out of UCF. Coming out of high school, super, super highly recruited. Had offers from Mississippi, where he attended before UCF. It was also recruited by Alabama. It was recruited by Georgia. So this is a guy, he has lots of talent. He has a lot of really good measurables, like a 6.81 time in the 3-cone drill, which Belichick probably circled. He ran in the 4.4s, 4.5. So really quick guy, really good athlete. Produced at UCF, had some injury concerns, had some drop concerns, which is probably why we saw him available in the 7th round. There were some projected him to even go undrafted. But this is a guy where if you hit on him in the 7th round, you struck gold. Patriots are known for getting their guys in the either late draft or outside of the draft and undrafted free agency. We see guys like Obviously, Julian Edelman was a seventh-round pick who came on several years later.
Mm-hmm.
I see guys like Jacoby Myers, undrafted free agent, Gunnar Olszewski, all undrafted free agent, although he mostly contributed on special teams.
The Patriots' history with wide receivers is so bizarre because it's like their early round picks feels like they never pan out, but then it's the undrafted guys are like that guy in the 7th round, or like Matthew Slater, who's been on the team for literally 12 years now at this point. It feels like it's interesting how the wide receiver position works over in New England. But I feel like Trent Nixon could be another one of those guys. You know, he could be around a long time. You know, the 7th round wonder that is the next wide receiver to step up and play for New England.
Yeah, super athletic kid, really high quality kid too. UCF, they run a really good football program down there. They don't have obviously the name brand recognition, but they've just churned out competitive teams year in, year out. Trina Nixon, another kid who fits the mold of that team, really competitive kid. Fascinating to see how his career arc's going to work. Obviously, the receiver position at New England is kind of just a big question mark. Nelson Aguilar and Kendrick Bourne are probably going to be starting on the outside. Jacoby Myers is going to be starting in the slot. After that, huge question mark. N'Keal Harry, in his 2 years in the league, really hasn't shown you much to really elicit confidence. And then you got guys like Christian Wilkerson, Isaiah Zuber, Devin Smith, who have no production history in the NFL. Then obviously you have Gunnar Olszewski, really, really good special teams player, but hasn't really shown you much at the wide receiver position. So it's going to be interesting. Trey Nixon's going to have a chance to not only earn a spot on this team, if he performs well, I could see him earning some playing time. It'll be probably a slow burn getting him in. We probably won't see him till more towards the end of the season, but the draft overall for the Patriots, I thought they did really well. They had a very prototypical Patriots draft, minus the quarterback in the first round. But I think the big reason why we see so many Patriots fans disgruntled is it wasn't really a sexy draft. There was no really that one pick that you could say, oh, this is great. I love this. This was so anti-Bill Belichick. But the fact that it was so Bill Belichick, but everything they hit, every pick they got, I could see contributing in the first year or two. Is really, really a huge part of what Belichick does. He doesn't draft guys with the intention of, oh, I don't care, just screw it, let me just pick this guy, and if he works, not. Mm-hmm. Like, you see guys, like, you see what he was going for with them. It's not,
every pick with New England always feels like it's a very calculated choice. Like, there's always a reason behind Bill Belichick picking somebody up. It's not like, oh, we took the best player available. It never feels like that in New England. So, with that, what's the grade? I'll let you go first. What are you going to slap on that report card for the New England Patriots?
Yeah, reading all the different football talking heads, reading what they've written about them, you see it's kind of all over the place. I've seen Patriots get A's. I've seen them ranked as like the 3rd or 4th best draft. Then I've seen them get like C's and ranked like the 20th draft.
Yeah.
So it's really fascinating to see what the take is on the Patriots. I really liked what they did. They added depth where they needed depth. They got a quarterback who apparently they're absolutely in love with and who apparently wanted to be there too. Obviously, they love the Alabama guy. So I give the Patriots a solid B. I think they did really well. I think every single draft pick, I was like, yes, this is a good fit. This is what they need. So I liked every single pick. But again, it wasn't that sexy draft. This has a chance to, if Mac Jones hits, then this is an A. This is an A draft. You'll have guys that will contribute on special teams, if nothing else. If Mac Jones and Christian Barmore hits, then you might have had the best draft of any team in this draft this year. A lot of weird picks this year. A lot of teams just kind of going for it, just kind of trying to hit that home run. Mm-hmm. Like we see like a Clemson who drafted quarterback and running back from the same team in the first round, which was absolutely wild.
Yeah. Well, I have a pretty interesting grade for what because I plan on doing them. I have a pretty interesting grade for them, and it might not be what most people would expect, because I think a lot of people slap them with an A because they're like, oh, they hit a home run, they're committed to Trevor. I like the B though that you gave them there. So I'm right next to you. I'm actually a little bit higher than you. I'm kind of surprised. I was expecting you to maybe be like B+, A-. I actually gave them a B+. I think the biggest knock for me is that to an extent this felt very like it is so defense heavy, which I feel is somewhat typical of New England. They didn't go after a D tackle in the first round. They ended up getting him in the second round. I think I love the Jones pick. Like you said, if they hit on Jones, this is obviously an A, and especially a Barrymore hits, that's an A+ right there. Period. End of story. One of the probably best draft groups out of the entire draft. If these two top picks hit, I would have liked them going maybe in the third round after a wide receiver. I don't necessarily remember off the top of my head who was available in that third rounder. The Patriots, like I said, they had 8 picks, so they had a lot of capital in this draft. They could have maybe potentially moved up to pick somebody. I would have liked to see them go after somebody a little bit later, that third, maybe fourth round range with a wide receiver, somebody that just feels like a more believable project than Trey Nixon in the 7th round. That's probably the biggest bad taste in my mouth out of this draft. But overall, a solid draft for New England. I give him a B+. Eli hit him with a B. But I think that's pretty much everything as far as the Patriots go. Eli, thank you so much for joining me on today's show. As always, if you enjoy the content, make sure you are liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, all that good stuff. Find us on the socials, the Greeks Gridiron, on literally everything. But that is it for today. Thank you all for watching, and have a good rest of your day, everybody. We'll catch you later with another draft grade.